Um, I'll go ahead and get started for you guys. First, I wanted to give just kind of like a format of layout, what to expect. So there's 3 calls, right? Tonight's the first one. We're going to have one next Sunday night at 7:30, and then the following Sunday night, the 19th, I think it is. So format, we got the email beforehand. I highly recommend having a pen and paper or journal, notebook, that kind of a thing. Be in a space where you don't have distractions, and be comfortable. Grab a hot cocoa, hot tea, jammies, whatever. I almost wore my pajama pants just to be comfortable. But then I was like, no. I was still in like my workout clothes from earlier today from like hiking and everything. But I did change out. But yeah, be comfortable. And I want to encourage you guys, like, this is not like just for me to speak. I wanted to encourage you, like, the interactivity. Use the chat, pop in, raise your hand, all of that kind of stuff, just to not have it be one-sided. I like conversation style. So yeah, I realize that many of you know me on different levels, and some not as much as others. So a little bit of introduction to me. I became a personal trainer 9 years ago. 10, actually, no, was it 10 years ago? Something like that. We're working on 10 years. And I got into it. I started working out after high school. I really wanted to be comfortable in my own skin. And at the time I was married, had a husband who was into working out and bodybuilding. And this was like, high school. So he was like bodybuilder in high school. And I like made fun of him for a year, and then we became friends, and then we got married, and that's all history now. But he showed me around the weight room, and I felt like kind of badass because I was a girl in the weight room. And back in 2007, like, that wasn't as big. I was going to American Family, so maybe that was part of it too. But anyway, I was getting to the point where I was like going to the gym 4 times a week, 5 times a week, 6, 7, and not getting that result that I had wanted, which was the comfort in my own skin. There were other things that I needed to learn that throughout my process and my journey that I have over the years and continue to learn. And I stumbled upon running in 2010, which was really kind of like the next stage for me. I could run 10 miles on a treadmill at the gym. Don't ask me to do that today. I went out and I did my first 5K. It was pony pasture. It was the very end of July. It was super crazy hot and humid, and it was beautiful and flat. And I went out and I had to walk 3 times. And this is 3.1 miles. Like, I knew I could run 10 miles, like 3 miles, like, please. And I was miffed by that. Like, why was I not able to continue running that entire time? And so I got curious and inquisitive and got into running, and it got me excited about, like, oh, hey, like, if I could do a 5K, could I do an 8K? How about a 10K? How about a half marathon? How about a full marathon? Like, I took it as far as I'm happy with taking it. And within that process, I also learned, like, a lot of things. I was not a personal trainer yet. I had a desk job. I did inside sales for a company, but I was running and getting into this, and I was learning, like, oh, like, this is what a program feels like. I have a push day, and then I have a recovery day, and then I have a push day, and then I have a recovery day, and then I have an easy day. following a rhythm that over time was starting to give me more results that I was looking for. And so fast forward, my life kind of like switched up in 2012. I wound up separating, eventually getting a divorce. And I was like, well, what am I, what do I want to do with my life? And I had a summer off while that was like starting to unfold. And realized, well, I was training for my first marathon. I was training with Marathon Training Team in Richmond. And I was seeing how like people who would go out on these long runs and they could complain about, everything under the sun, spouse, kids, job, traffic, whatever. And yet feel absolutely elated at the end of this run, and really seeing them come alive, and have energy around like, wow, this is like my first marathon. Like I just ran 10 miles or 20 miles. And I was seeing how that was playing out in other areas of their life and really like helping them all to improve. And so basically I put two and two together and I said, well, that's something that I can get behind. Like I did throw around a few other ideas. Brian, I think you know this, like I thought about opening up a bakery because I was making goodies for the Marathon Training Team. Because, we were running 20 miles and then at the end of that, it's like, we just burned 2,000 calories. Anybody want a cookie? Like anybody hungry? And I loved mornings. I loved baking. I liked that joy in giving that to people, but I couldn't get behind like doing that for everybody, knowing that not everyone was training for a marathon. Like, honestly, I didn't want to make people fat. So I was like, okay, back to the drawing board. And so then I came across this. And so that's how I fell into or kind of like created my space within personal training, was that it wasn't just about the physicality of it and reaching this like said aesthetic goal. It was about, it running and working out and doing yoga, for example, was a really great outlet, were really great outlets for me in emoting and processing my emotions through, kind of like this new transformation in my life. So I really was like digging deep and creating different meanings for it. In 2014, so my original vision for it was I wanted to start a chain of fitness studios. And that was the vision. Like I can see it clear as day right now. I was riding my bike. I was on Patterson Avenue. I was coming down the hill into Willow Lawn area. And it was like a message download, if you will. I have no other way to describe that, but I was like, I want to do that. And so I got behind on it, or not behind on it, but behind it, and started my journey. So 2014, I got the opportunity. That's a story for another time, but to start the Well Personal Training Studio. And today we've got 2 locations and more to come. So I'm very, very excited about that. I always knew that I could affect, so many people, but if I had a team of people with me, like I've handpicked our trainers, they're incredible. I tell people, like, honestly, they can do a better job than I can, really, because I'm doing all of these other things too, but they're just focusing on, you. And so they can help more people than just I could. So that's the vision, and that's the background. I created Kickstart Your Wellness because, well, a couple of things. I had started this ebook in 2018. I launched like an original copy of it and realized like I've done a lot of work throughout the years that can be reused and revamped. And when I started really like digging into it, I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much more that I can add to this. So I hope that you guys have gotten the chance to open it up, thumb through it some. We're going to go through a little chunk of it tonight. And yeah, I created it because I wanted it to be an additional resource, not only for our clients, but also for anybody that, is like, hey, yeah, I want to do those things. Like, I want to elevate my health, my fitness, my life, my wellness, my overall well-being. Great. Here's a tool that you can do that with. And if you need additional help, we're here. So that is that. The first section of the book, and if you'll notice, it's also the largest, is focused on the internal perspective that we carry versus like exterior action taking. You can search, and sometimes I do, how often should I exercise? How often, how to eat well? There are 1,000,001 results that will come up. And the thing is, like, we could do a number of those and get certain results, right? But at the end of the day, what's going to work for you, not only now, right? But also like going forward, like, how could I create something that, if you start a routine this week or this month, or maybe you started one in January and it's not working for you in February or in May, like putting you in the power seat of, okay, here's the priorities in my life, and here's how I'm going to organize it, reorganize it, and I'm going to test out what results this gives me. Like, that's huge versus, okay, I was doing that plan, it's not working no more, throw it out with the bathwater, which happens a lot. And then that's frustrating, right? That's where we get those like yo-yo patterns of like, okay, I'm motivated, I'm going to do it, and it's going to stick this time. And then something happens, life, right, happens to each of us, different velocities, or whatever word I'm looking for there, different levels of impact of situations that come our way, that, stress, etc., for us to work through, and say, okay, again, coming back to priorities and what do I want to do? How do I want to feel? How do we do that? So clicking into, let me go over here. I think it's on this tab. Yes, I have way too many tabs open on my computer. So the PDF itself should be clickable within like the table of contents, and then any links that I put in as well. So going into that first section of mindset, I've tried to like link books that I reference, audiobooks, different things like that. This first example that I was using in here, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Taking that into mindset. So one of my wind down activities, if you will, de-stressing, getting ready for bed, just kind of like transitioning from the day of work to relaxing and processing. I like to color. I'm very excited because I just got a brand new set of colored pencils. Oh, I love it. Yes, you found it, Angela. The coloring page in the book. I wanted to add that in there because, like, how often do we say like, oh yeah, that's a good idea, I'm gonna do that, and maybe even like put it in the Amazon cart, but then don't follow through, or don't have something to do with it. So good. I'm so glad to see that.
Well, I have to tell you that, first of all, I love to color. Melanie loves to color, and we have coloring books. But the first thing when I saw that in there, I said, oh, I get to color like that. And I have to tell you that the other night I took that out and I started coloring, and then I went to bed and I had the best night's sleep I've had in a long time. I mean, I was like, whoa.
That's awesome.
I mean, I knew I had to adjust my nighttime ritual, but I really did. I was amazing. I almost texted you.
That is so cool. Please always feel free to.
Yeah, it was
That's
great.
so awesome to get that like immediate feedback. You know,
Right.
you did that and then that happened. Like
Yep. Yeah.
that's good
So
stuff.
simple.
Yeah, right. Very cool. So sometimes I'll do it while listening to an audiobook. Sometimes it's just like I'm listening to some kind of Zen music, lo-fi or something like that. And sometimes I'm listening to an audiobook. And this one particular evening, I was listening to an audiobook. It was Wayne Dyer. If any of you guys are familiar with him. But he brought up this quotation that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And then he was kind of like breaking it down a little bit more, where he was pointing out the significance of the word student and the word ready. And basically saying, like, you know, we've all had varying levels of experience of life thus far. And like, we could, and many people do, just kind of like reach this status quo kind of like, all right, I got it figured out, you know, like this is the way life goes, versus the approaching the day with like wonder, or, you know, like I wonder what's gonna, you know, what cool things can I learn today or experience today, or like my one for this week, I was inspired by an Instagram post that I saw earlier today, and it was like, make a list of things that you can do to bring yourself joy this week. And I was like, ooh, you know what? I could make that like a tangible intention as I start my day and I'm going through my day. Is like, let me seek out some joy. I want to find that. That sounds fun. You know, like approaching it like an adventure versus, okay, another work day, you know. Here we go. Tomorrow's Monday. um and then did I go into the ready part here? I don't know if I did, but I did just kind of go into the fact of like, you responded to the call and are literally on this call, you know? So you're here for some reason, right? And I would love to know, you know, what is it that I can support you in? So, you know, feel free to share that with me. You can share it here, or you can, whatever you're comfortable with. But for the subsequent calls, like if there's any way that I can cater it to be of best support to you, I'd love to know. So the next portion that I have in here is that blank page-ish. I made it cute. What is wellness to you? So like, what does that mean? And to use that as kind of your definitive marker for your goals, like the backdrop, if you will, the vision. Success may not look like whatever person on Instagram says, right? We all know this, but sometimes we need that reminder to come back to ourselves and say like, okay, what do I want to feel like? What, you know, how do I want my body to feel? How, like I go to feeling a lot, like, because if anybody in here has ever had whiplash or a back injury, you know that it hurts to get out of bed, you know, like something as simple as that. At the core of us, you know, like we all can probably agree that we don't want to be experiencing physical pain. And so often I've seen and worked with people that have lower back discomfort, you know, and we just kind of, okay, yeah, ignore it or deal with it or something like that. But like, no, like, hold on, slow down the recording, go back to student mode, go back to, you know, wonder and adventure mode and say like, how would I like to experience life? I get this bodysuit, what can I do with it? So yeah, what is wellness to you? Is it easefulness? Is one that comes up for me. Is it less stress? Is it vigor, energy when you're getting out of bed and getting into the day? Is it looking forward to the day ahead? How can our physical bodies support all of the other things that we're doing in our lives? And then that goes into, and I'm going to put this in as homework for y'all, between that page and then this goals worksheet page, is like, once you get the framework of the vision, then like, let's put pen to paper and put some like tangible goals down. And sometimes this one can be a little more challenging, but I would say start wherever on the page. So this goals worksheet, if you don't have it open right now, it's a holistic approach to goal setting. So on one page, it's got fitness, career, and life in terms of columns, because oftentimes, like, maybe we have like all these amazing goals over here in the fitness column, and then in the life column, it's like, and I've got all of these over here too, or like big career goals, like change job and buy a house and completely transform my physical body. When you see them side to side, then you can start saying like, oh wait, hold on a second. Maybe that's too much exactly at one time. I don't know. Also, it's just a little bit. If you operate like that, more power to you. If you found a way that's sustainable, I'd love to hear about it. But I have found that bandwidth is something to be considered. So sometimes, maintenance stuff is good for other categories. But breaking it down into anywhere from 30 to 60 to 90 days, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, and 5 years. So you've got immediate short term to longer term, right? 5 years down the road would be 2028. That's crazy. So, start where excites you, but definitely have something down for that 30 days. What are some actionable items that you can take that will move you in the direction? I'll get into, like, in the second and third calls, I do have a loose layout in terms of, like, I've got a little bit of mindset, but then also, like, call number 2, I want to go into movement. And then call number 3, of course, I'm still going to include mindset, but then also nutrition. Okay. And questions of all of the above are welcome in all 3. So from there, I've got going into meditation. And maybe you've meditated before, maybe you haven't. I've definitely, like, within the last 10 years, seen the uptick of that coming up in conversation and being a more normal, if you will, thing to talk about and thing to consider. And I even, like, I wanted to put the formal definition of meditate in there, which is to engage in contemplation or reflection, or to engage in mental exercise, such as concentration on one's breathing or repetition of a mantra, for the purpose of reaching a heightened level of spirit. It says spiritual awareness. I'll even just put awareness in there. Just a heightened level of awareness. I did a short meditation, and I talk about it in the book here. I did a 10-minute meditation before getting on the call with you guys. This one in particular was about loving kindness. And so it was like sending happiness, health, and ease of suffering to someone you love, someone you don't care for, and then to like everybody, and then to like all living beings. And oh, I'm sorry, I missed one, kind of like an important one, and to yourself. Funny, I should forget that. So yeah, it went someone you love or care about, someone you don't care for, fill in the blank there, um, yourself, and then everybody in the world, and then all beings. Um, but I wanted to put myself in like an easeful state before jumping on with you guys. Um, and it's something that like I I kick myself for not always like following through on it. I'd like to say like, yeah, I meditate every day. I don't meditate every day, but I have practiced it more often than not today versus a year ago or 2 years ago. So, I like to try to not put metrics around that, but more so just like be aware of it, know that it's a tool, um, and use it. So, two common objections that come up there typically are I don't have the time, or it just doesn't work for me. I can't sit still that long. That's the I don't have the time, and the I just can't sit still for that long enough, or don't concentrate that well, are exactly why I included the guided meditations that I look up on YouTube. So like I don't have a practice where I just kind of like sit and actually do it without the guidance of some recording. I haven't gotten there. I don't know if that's like a graduation thing, but I like listening to and focusing on someone else's voice. And so like, as I'm sitting in my chair and she or he is saying, and relax, like close your eyes and relax the muscles around your eyes. Like I can vibe with that. Like I can tap in and like physically and mentally like tell my body in those places where they're telling me, yes, calm, ease, let go of stress and tension, those kinds of things. So highly recommend checking it out.
Yeah. I'm thinking about doing it at lunchtime. I've actually made some progress. I'm actually taking my lunch at work. So, but I leave the building, and I've noticed how it's becoming more of for me to like center myself actually. And so this meditation, reading through it with you, reading what you provided us, I was like, I could do that like the beginning of my lunch break. And, just, when I leave the building, I go to my car, and usually what I've been doing lately is a park right nearby. I can drive there. And I've been watching the animals, which has been great. And I actually have found I felt better going back to the office, and I'll have my lunch with me. But I was also thinking, this is an opportunity. And like you said, it doesn't have to be something I'm structured I do every day at lunchtime, but for the times that I feel that it would be helpful, I'm thinking that would be good. So
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to try.
I like that. Yeah. And I think the reason also that I stay away from like the, do it every day, blah, blah,
Right.
blah, at a certain time, yada, yada, is to not get into like a checklist mentality with it.
Right.
You're
And
like,
I'm a checklist person.
uh-huh.
So, right.
Couple of
That's a little, so that is, something I will have to be aware of. I heard you, and
yeah,
I took note of it.
beautiful. Awesome. Cool. Well, that leads into mindfulness. And I defined that one as well. So mindfulness is defined as the quality or state of being conscious or aware of something, and or a mental state achieved by focusing one's awareness on the present moment while calmly acknowledging and accepting one's feelings, thoughts, and bodily sensations, used as a therapeutic technique. So this is something I can think back, for an example purpose, maybe 2 years ago, where if I was not feeling something that was positive or was stressful or made me restless, well, it was making me restless because I didn't want to feel it. And I would distract myself in any way possible so that I wouldn't have to deal with it, really, and anything would work, right? Work, right? That's a noble cause, to completely ignore what I'm experiencing inside. um, Scrolling on my phone. Exercise could be used as that. Um, Really anything can. So mindfulness is really just kind of like tapping in, slowing down and saying like, okay, what is going on? And what is, yes, being present in the moment. And when I'm getting more into like emotions and feelings and all the gushy stuff, that's more of like okay, what is it asking to express, kind of thing? Where's that coming from? What does it need? What do I need? Um, but the kind of the other side of mindfulness that it has gifted me is that I'm not rushing through my days to get to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, the checklist, right? To get to the end of the day and say, yes, I got all of these things done, but I didn't get that one done. So therefore I have failed, or I would totally fall into that category of like, I got all, and I would focus on that one thing that I didn't get done. However, I missed probably so many great moments and pieces of wonder, pieces of joy that I could have had throughout that day. And I won't get that day back. Like, no day will be just like today, you know? And it has really brought a dimension of well-being to my life, to practice mindfulness, or just like to stop. And my office predominantly is at home at this point because my studios are being utilized. So I'm here with my 3 dogs, and they are my loves. I have 3 Cavalier King Charles Spaniels, and like I can look across the room right now, and my boy is passed out on the chair, sleeping oh so soundly. And I can look up and notice them, and I can tangibly, like if I'm at a breaking point with work, like I can go and pet them for a minute. Like that can be my coffee break, coffee machine break, if you will. um, so yeah, it's the difference between like, yes, okay, we've got this wellness goal or this vision, right? And we've got these goals that we're going to do to get there. But then, like, how much time do we spend in the journey versus the actual pinnacle attainment of the goal? That's a big gap, right? Like, there's way more time in the journey than the point of the pinnacle. And usually the pinnacle is a little bit like short, it can be short-lived, if we're not spending a lot of time in like gratitude and appreciation and celebration, because we already found another one. Well, I'm going to get that shiny object up there. So just kind of an observation of how do we enjoy this journey of life more deeply? How do we drink a little more deeply? And I forget if I was going to go into, yes, I am. Okay. Last points that I'll go into here, and then I have a little activity for you, and then I'll open it up for questions and or discussion. Visualization and affirmations. So these are two powerful tools. Usually whenever we do like have a vision, right, or set a goal, we've got an idea of what that looks like, feels like, all of that kind of stuff. But like tangibly taking the time to sit down and pen to paper, write it out. Like, one, you've got that tactile task, right? That tactile movement, physicality to it. That I don't know if you're anything like me, but like back in school, when I was in class and I wrote down my notes versus just like highlighted and then like tried to read back through the book or whatnot, like it stuck more because I spent that time like sincerely writing it out. I have found the same thing to be similar for writing versus typing. Typing is better than not writing, but I would say that physical handwriting has a greater impact than typing. So something to consider there if you're a digital note taker. But so visualization, spending time, like this is something that I'm trying to do whenever I'm getting up in the morning, is envisioning like, whatever it is that I'm working towards, appreciation and gratitude and stuff like that. I have some examples in here in terms of health, fitness, and increasing your overall wellness. You're spending time going through the mental movie in your mind of what it's like to have achieved your goal. What are all the various sensations, sight, taste, feel, smell? What is the experience like? What has your achieved goal gifted you? So I could very easily do this when I had started training for races, for marathons. I knew what was it going to feel like to cross the finish line. It's a very good example. Like let's say for a marathon, I trained 6 months for 26.2 miles to get to 26.2 miles. We didn't even run that far in training. We ran 20 miles. So there was still another 6.2 miles that were left unknown on race day. That was fun. There's all kinds of different ways to train. That was one of them. And so, we're spending a lot of time and a lot of hours and a lot of energy going through these motions throughout the course of those 6 months, the journey, right, to reach the pinnacle of the race itself, which is still also a journey, which sometimes can feel longer than that 6 months of training. And to reach that pinnacle of crossing the finish line. And so I could visualize and kind of draw into like, what does that feel like? I don't know. Well, it did taste like pizza. They had pizza at the finish line. So, like get into like, how do you create that for yourself and for your goals? Is it a restful night of sleep? Is it waking up fresh in the morning? And then affirmations, I love to put these on my mirror. So I'll take like a dry erase marker and just like, I actually cleaned it off the other day because I had a few that like, I don't know if you guys experienced this, but I had some goals and some affirmations up there for a while and I stopped seeing them. So whenever that happens, I know like, okay, I got to switch it up somehow, especially if those ones are still the ones that need to be up there for me. Right. So if they become white noise, to kind of revamp that. But yeah, like, I am confident, I am strong, I am powerful, I am patient, I am well, I am healthy, I am full of vigor, I have joy, I have peace, life is easy, I'm getting better and better every day, I am beautiful, I am handsome. Whatever kind of takes you in that direction. So play around with that. What I wanted to give you guys a couple of minutes to do is, if you have your handy dandy notebook and or piece of paper and pen, sometimes the affirmations can be challenging. You know, if you're going to look at yourself in the mirror and say, like, I am beautiful, but not believe it, why? You know, I'm not going to say don't bother, right? But you want to do it in a way where you can receive that energy, right? So I have a few questions for you, and I'll put these in the chat too. The overarching question is, what is your relationship with yourself? Like, if you were your own best friend, how do you relate to them? So those are kind of like two different questions there. Hopefully they're close to being one and the same. What is your relationship with yourself? And if you were your best friend, how do you relate to them? So some questions along with this. How would you speak to this friend? Your best friend. How would you treat them? Would you spend time with them? Listen to them? Care for them? Do things to communicate your love for them? Do you check in on them? So really just like connecting the dots there. How much of a best friend are you to yourself, kind of thing? Because at the end of the day, if we are our best friends to ourselves, then the prioritization of ourselves comes a lot easier. It's not just actions, right? And then things like looking in the mirror and saying, like, I am beautiful, I am sexy, I am loving, kind, talented, right? Valuable, worthy, all of those kinds of things. So anybody have anything that they care to share about that, and or I can open this up for discussion and questions. I want to be respectful of your time.
So I'll personally say, um, my relationship, my self relationship, and my best friend, and as far as me treating myself as my best friend, it's been like it fluctuates. There was one point where I would give myself my best effort and really wouldn't show, but now lately I'm beginning to be more confident in myself. Like you mentioned affirmations, like I want to say either last year or the year before, I did a podcast and I impromptu started saying affirmations in the midst of the podcast, and they became like my affirmations that I've revised and changed over time. Like one affirmation that sticks with me is I intend to be 1% better every day. I haven't read the book, but I keep saying I'm gonna read Atomic Habits, but that's one word that lives with me of just learning, like I want to improve every day. Like every day is not gonna be rainbows and sunshine. We know that, but when you're put in that position to realize it's like you really have to like do that and make those changes. Like you mentioned earlier about handwritten and digital. Like last year I was a digital guy. I'm a tech, so it's like expected. So when the end of the year came, I was like, I don't really like this digital thing. I'm going back to what has worked. So I'm now doing I keep a traditional journal. I just got introduced to morning pages, which if you have not heard of it, please do some. The lamest version of it is in the morning before meditation, before all your other things, like invest like 3 pages worth of writing just to write out whatever's in your head and get out of your head. So I've done that. And then I introduced myself back to bullet journaling, which is a personal preference of planning. I love planners. I think planners are great, but no knock against anyone. Female planners are a little bit more structured and all over the place. And for most men, it's just, hey, what do I need to do today? Let me knock out these tasks and kind of go from there. So Angela, I can relate 100% on the task part. Aubrey knows I gave Kazi a big grief about how he was planning and tasking. So to circle back, like it's just big because I've added like a feature. Now, we'll say I pulled this from the Passion Planner. There's like a weekly reflection. And one of the questions they ask is like, what have you done for self-care this week? And I'm like, the first week I did it, I was laughing because they was like, what did you do for self-care? I was like, nothing. And I was like, no, this got to change. So each week I try to just do like one small thing for myself. So yeah, little things like that have helped to like improve, as well as working out and just trying to get myself back into like a better sound state. So
That's really cool. Yeah. What was that one journal that you talked about first?
morning pages.
Morning pages.
Yeah, morning pages. It's part of a book. I gotta look it up, but it's a book that's out, and the first part that she talks about in the book is called the morning pages. So it's called let's see. Yeah, so the main is one separate book itself called The Miracle of Morning Pages by Julia Cameron. And her book itself is the Artist's Way, which is a more in-depth. Yeah.
I've heard of that. Have you
Yep.
read?
I have not read it yet because they like when I was getting ready to start reading it, I got a plethora of books in line. So
Yeah.
But that one book, like they talk about the first part of it is about the morning pages and how helpful that is to like to start your day, like just doing those things. So I'll since we're in, I'll look for the actual book itself and I'll put it in chat.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Atomic Habits by James Clear,
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
That was recommended to me last January. And I find myself in the same boat where I'm like, I've got all these books and I totally want to read them all and like download. If I could just download the information.
Yeah.
I got that one on Audible and I listened
Okay.
and I liked it. So, but yeah, the concept of 1% better.
Yep.
Okay. At the end of the year, you're 365% better. You
Yeah.
sleep little bits every day. I like that. Very cool. Anyone else? Anything coming up or any questions?
Well, I have something to say.
Yay.
And I just typed it in the chat there when you were talking about the journey, getting to a goal. I always enjoy the journey. So when I have goals, I enjoy the journey getting to those goals, because I find that once you attain them, it's not as fun, because it's the end. But then you went on about saying about, gratitude and that, and as I've gotten older, I've learned to do that, to understand and appreciate. So that means a lot to me, because I really do enjoy the journey. And right now I feel like this is a new journey. This is the beginning of a new journey, and it makes me very excited. And I emailed you, I didn't get my book yet. I need my book. And because I'm ready. And
That's
the student is ready. So
teacher, what you doing?
but that's so I find that is my personality, to enjoy the journey. And I need to, like you said, you often have the next goal kind of thing like that. But maybe enjoy the goal, accomplishing the goal a little more. Something I need to learn. And that the goal is not finite. It's something that especially with where I am now in my life, and participating in this and thinking of going forward, what the next steps are and things like that. It is more of a lifestyle change. So it's not one of those temporary, okay, I'm going to do that 5K, which I am going to. But that it's more than that. It's more than the 5K.
Yeah.
So thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm excited for you. That's cool. I'm wondering over here, okay, if it's not just the 5K, what is it? I'm on
Life.
the edge of my seat.
Life.
Thank you, Brian, for the links in the chat.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Angela, I learned, I give it within the past year. And this was something through I've invested in coaching myself. And one of the things that taught me, that my coach taught me, was it was kind of like a revealing me to myself kind of thing. So it's not that she said this and I was like, oh, the light went on, but it was like a realization that, oh my gosh, the life that I live, even though I see that one up there, and that's my vision that I'm holding, and I'm not there yet. So I'm still looking at that. But where I'm sitting right now is, oh my gosh, more than I dreamt of 9 years ago. Oh, okay. All right, I can enjoy this some. Okay. For me, taking it into exercise realm, I looked back, and I can't tell you that whenever I started running, I didn't know how much I would like it. I don't, I use it as a very tangible example. I don't ever put it in a space where I'm pushing it on other people, right? where was I going to go with that now? Darn it. Squirrel. You just tell my dog to come and get this squirrel. Was, yeah, I totally lost it. Anybody, can I phone a friend?
It doesn't mean where you are right now is a bad place, but to, like you were saying, it's the gratitude, it's appreciating where you are. And like you said, like even just reading this, you said, while you're reading this, stop, take a break, look around you, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
I needed that reminder. And I need that reminder. Because, being someone that is, task driven, goal driven, kind of thing like that. So it's very different for me, but it's something that I'm open to and feel that I can see that it's helpful and additive to the journey, so.
Quality and quantity of life.
Yeah.
Quality and quantity of years.
And I'll add to what you said, because I always have to remind my friends, because they don't like when I say this, but it's important to tell them. I'm like, just remember a year ago. And it doesn't matter where they were or what happened, but it's like, think of like a year ago from now, like at this point today, like what were you doing a year ago and what are you doing now? And like kind of doing that reflection of just like, dang, I have grown, I have changed. I've had a lot of transitions in my life happen. And sometimes because we're so like Angela said, and I'm a big same boat. It's like, I'm doing this, getting this all done. And it's like, we really don't take that moment of like, let me stop and like, let me enjoy what I've accomplished and like really pat myself on the back. We hear the phrase, be kind to ourselves, give ourselves grace, all of that. But it's like genuinely taking that time to do it and like not beating yourself up. Like, I mean, Kazi and I, we had that conversation almost every week. He's like, yeah, remember week 1 when you couldn't move and do this? And it's like, look at where you are now. And I'm like, yeah, it's definitely a different mode and different mood. So no, I understand that 100%.
Yeah, that's cool. That reminded me, so taking that back to the physicality of running, I was having the realization that I'm working on year 13 of most weeks, at least more weeks than not weeks, out of that 13 years of running at least 3 times a week. Not counting, not even counting mileage or training for something or not. And also not beating myself up for those couple of weeks, handful of weeks that I didn't. Because again, like more often than not, like, wow, the course of 13 years. That's crazy.
And it's awesome. That's great. Starting now, I'm going to have that. Not right. But active. Because I've done it in the past, we've all gone through cycles and stuff like that. This is like it all says is a restart, get us started kind of thing and see where it can go. Right, Melanie?
Awesome. And hi, Debbie. I didn't even say hi to you. I know you snuck in there.
I wanted to share something that talking about the journaling, that has really helped me over the past year. And I found that I have the best opportunity to do it first thing in the morning before reconnecting with the rest of the world. Because if I don't do it before that, then it just doesn't happen. And I've thought I would do it at nighttime and that didn't work. And I also found that if I go several days without doing it, it starts to impact me and it seems to bring me some balance when I do it. And I try to start it off with just, I am grateful. And it could be something so simple as I am grateful it's Friday. But, sometimes I just start off with something so simple as I'm grateful, And then before I know it, I've got a whole page worth of gratitude, and it really helps set the tone for me to ease into the day. And I have my cup of coffee while I'm doing it. And it's just, I started that about a year ago, and it really has made a difference. That's one of those talk about self-care things that I didn't know what self-care was before, because you grow up thinking that if you focus on yourself, you're being self-centered or selfish. And this whole self-care thing is a new concept for me. So,
Mhm.
but I have enjoyed that. The journaling does help.
Nice. Yeah. It's like a chance for us to listen to ourselves
Mhm.
and to focus our minds. I
Well,
love
and that appreciation for, like Angela was saying, and Brian and you, about where you are today. Appreciate what you have today. Yes, you can have goals and plans, but it's helpful to appreciate what's happening right now.
yeah. This very moment.
Mhm.
Very cool. Thank you. All right, y'all. Well, we are just a little over an hour. So unless anybody has something burning and wiggling that they want to bring up and out, let's call it a night.
Well, I just went real quick. You said any topic would be good. With regard to nutrition, okay. I've sort of, like, this past year, started a whole food plant-based progress, going to that. And what I found with all the information that's out there is understanding how much protein I need, and without not having the basic, meat, chicken, fish kind of thing. And I still eat fish, and I still eat chicken every now and then. But I found it very confusing about that. So I started with a protein powder that's plant-based.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, okay, well then what do I do? Like, do I have that more than once a day, with fruit? What do you, and I understand there's protein in the other foods I eat. I understand that, but I just can't get my head around how much am I supposed to have?
Right. Everybody's protein needs wind up being a little bit different. So that would be a little bit more in depth, but there are ways to, track as well as add in protein. So I'll give two examples. Because I've been like gravitating towards that myself as well.
Mhm.
That I love a steak. I love chicken. I love seafood. I don't know if I would ever give up oysters. But at home, particularly, I'm finding myself gravitating towards less meats and fish. But and that being said, it's causing me to be more mindful of adding in protein. So like I've got some cans of chickpeas. I do a plant-based protein powder. I switched from whey a number of years ago at this point, because it was giving me gas. And so oftentimes, like in the mornings when I'm making oatmeal, I'll do a scoop of my chocolate or vanilla plant protein powder in it as well. After it's cooked, I don't cook it with it. But I'll mix it afterwards, or I'll do like overnight oats. And I think at least the overnight oats is a recipe that's in the book. For dinner, I'll give the example. I used a little bit less shrimp tonight for this shrimp coconut curry that I made. I was really excited about this. I've been trying to make a curry for like a while. Not trying, but like I've been thinking about making a curry for a while. And I didn't have the recipe that I found. I didn't have diced tomatoes. I didn't have a can of diced tomatoes, but I did have some light coconut milk. And I combined that and some bone broth that I had already in the fridge instead of like tomato sauce, or I didn't have the canned tomatoes. And then I also, like, it was a little bit watery whenever I was about to have some, and I threw in some plain Greek yogurt, which I realize isn't plant-based, but that added in some protein and thickened it up for me some. So just like thinking outside the box, being resourceful. That was part of the reason that I brought up the chickpeas. But yeah, working towards getting an understanding of how much protein your body needs, and then using something like a MyFitnessPal for a season. Which, are you familiar with MyFitnessPal? It's a food logging app.
Right, I've seen the app.
Yeah.
Right.
I wouldn't pay a darn attention to how many calories it says you should or shouldn't eat per day.
Mhm.
But you can use it as that educational tool to plug in, here's what I did eat,
Okay.
even down to like the minute, like, hey, I made a recipe and it had this and this and this and this, and I think about this much of this, that kind of stuff. But then you can really start to kind of hone in your intuition as to like how much protein everything has that you're used to eating.
Okay. Do you use Joe's Plus? Is that what you use? The chocolate and vanilla?
No.
Yeah.
I get mine, actually at this point I get it from Amazon. Orgain, I think, is the brand.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for that. That's something I'm trying to, it's a lot of information, you know?
Yeah.
So
It's a journey too.
it is. Yes.
All right, y'all. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Think about your vision and plug in some goals. Bring a 30-day one for next week, okay? And I'm here if you need anything. I'll have some emails coming out, and always feel free to reach out to me. Let me know how I can help.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yes. Have an awesome week.
Thank y'all.
You too.
Yeah, have a
Thank
good
you.
one.
You too.